Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Alright, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. Alright, it is Friday, first day of June, and we got stuff to talk about today. All right, today we will be talking about Aaron Rodgers, his contract situation with the Packers. Okay. We'll be talking about the Patriots also. Probably going to start off the show with them. The no fun team. All right. Cassius Marsh came out, said that Patriots basically made him think about quitting football. He wasn't having fun there, and it stinks. So I'll give my thoughts on that. I don't think it's not a bad thing to say, but nonetheless, I got thoughts on it. The Miami Dolphins extended Bobby McCain, their nickel corner, making him the highest paid nickel corner in the league. Going to talk about that. Also just going to talk about Miami as a whole in the third segment. And then for the fourth segment, I will be talking about anything else going on in the world of football, or just talking about anything else going through my mind as far as football goes. All right. So, the New England Patriots have been probably the best team in football since 2001. Okay. And that's not an easy thing to accomplish, being great for that long. You don't really see too many teams do that. Okay, the Spurs are a team in the NBA that's done that before. They kind of like stopped their little run. But from about the late 90s to it's about 2014, 2015, the Spurs were a top team in the league. At least a team still capable of winning championships is what I mean. Okay. In baseball, we don't really see that. Or at least I haven't seen that. All right. And obviously you have to have a type of philosophy that you put in place during those years in order to be successful. All right, meaning the Patriots, they got the Patriot way and all that. All right, they've always stuck to one thing, and they've always did things a certain way, and that's what's helped them be successful. And it's not necessarily for everyone, okay? Sometimes some players can handle it, and some can't, okay? And, I mean, it's just a matter of whether or not you buy into the system. Okay, we've seen guys like Teddy Bruschi become great linebackers and all that, and we've seen guys like Chad Johnson walk in there and not be able to handle it. And obviously Cassius Marsh was someone else who couldn't. All right, listen to Chris Long talk before, and he talks about how you learn a lot over in New England, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. All right, it's extremely difficult to play there. And like I said, it works for some, and it works for none sometimes. All right. Bill Belichick has been successful enough to the point where I'm going to be on his side here, on the team side, rather than siding with someone who says that it wasn't fun. Because I'm sure Cassius Marsh is right. I'm sure, it's definitely not fun at all to be playing for the Patriots. Okay. You go in there, you're going to work. You're not going to play football or to have fun. Okay, and obviously you are going to play football, but what I mean is pretty much the children's game and all that. No, you're going there to do your job. Okay, playing for the Patriots is basically like working a 9 to 5. It's not necessarily the funnest thing to do, but you could probably get great at it. Okay. And now you got Patriots players and all that hitting back at the critics saying that losing is no fun. You have fun when you're winning. And that's one thing too, okay? Winning cures all. I'm sure, yeah, these players know and buy into the system, know that it's going to be difficult, and know that it's not going to be easy playing for this team. But nonetheless, you know it's all going to pay off at the end. That's why this team has won 5 Super Bowls since 2001. That's why they've been, to 7 Super Bowls? They've been to 8 or 7 Super Bowls. I think they've been to 8. Philly being the 8th. All right. 8 Super Bowls since 2001. Right? They played the Giants twice. Okay. The Rams. No, did they play the Rams? Yeah, they played the Rams. The Eagles, that's 4. Panthers. Played the Eagles twice, so that's 6. And then I feel like the Falcons. Am I missing one more? I think I might be missing one more. It's going to kill me. I know I'm missing one more. The Seahawks. So that's 8, yeah. So they've been the 8th Super Bowl since 2001. That's not easy to do. Okay? That's 8 Super Bowls in, 17 years? All right, so nearly half of those years, they've been one of the best teams in the league. All right. And it's a system that, it's either you get it or you don't. So I'm not necessarily mad at the Patriots for being such a poor place to work. All right. I'm not necessarily mad at someone not liking being there. All right, but how's that Patriot way going to work this season? They are the best team in the division currently. I don't think Miami is going to be able to challenge them. Buffalo and New York aren't ready to do that. All right, that's kind of how it's been the last 20 or so years. And, comparing them to the other teams of the AFC, I think they're the best team in the AFC right now still. All right, the Chargers are going to be a pretty good team. I've seen a couple of Super Bowl contender takes with the Chargers, but I'm not sure how much I trust them. Okay? The Chargers definitely should have won a Super Bowl back when LT was there and Phillip Rivers was still in his prime. All right? But it's just now, we've seen the Chargers, and they're kind of like a cursed franchise, meaning that if it's a close game, they're allergic to it. All right? They're not going to be able to finish it. So, with the Chargers, like I said, I don't necessarily trust them. The Chiefs, they'll only go as far as Patrick Mahomes takes them. The Broncos are a team that's very intriguing to me. I really have no clue with how I think they're going to end up this season. All right? They got a lot of good talent, but it's just a point of, these last 2 years have been really bad. The AFC North, obviously the Steelers are a team that could challenge the Patriots, but, the Steelers really don't beat the Patriots at all, ever. It just seems like the Patriots are the Steelers' kryptonite. All right. And then you got the NFC South where you had the Jaguars facing off with the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. And obviously the Patriots came out in that one. Jaguars made it close. Maybe this is the year the Jaguars can take over the AFC. Possibly. Like we said, we talked about it yesterday. I think the Titans are going to be a very good team. I think the Texans are going to be good. The Colts, they're always good if they have Andrew Luck. So, the Patriots are going to have some competition, but it's just the point of it's just going to be competition. I don't think there's anyone really there to take over from them. All right? And, it'll be tough, though, for the Patriots to make it back to the Super Bowl. There's not too many teams that have been there 3 years in a row. Okay? I don't think there's ever been a team that's made the Super Bowl 3 years in a row, and I think that we need to check that out. What's the most that a team is? Obviously, we've had a couple of back-to-backs and all. Okay, but I don't think anyone's really made it 3 years in a row, and I don't think anyone's ever won it. There had to have been a team, maybe. I think it might just be the Patriots that have before. All right, so I'm looking at it here. Obviously, the Packers won the first 2 Super Bowls, didn't make it back for a third. Let's see. The Miami Dolphins went to 3 straight Super Bowls. They lost in 72 to the Dallas Cowboys, won in 73-74. So that's one team that's done it. Made it 3 years in a row. And I'm not necessarily saying win it 3 years in a row, but just make it there 3 times in a row. Steelers went twice in a row. Let's see. I think it's right now just Miami that's been 3 years in a row. Yeah, I think so. Still looking through it. San Francisco went twice in a row. Buffalo went to 4 straight Super Bowls. I forgot about that. Yeah, so there's been a team actually done 4 years in a row, and that's Buffalo, and they lost every time. 20-19, 37-24 to Washington, 52-17 to Dallas, 30-13 to Dallas. That's brutal right there, going to 4 straight Super Bowls and not getting one. All right, that's honestly something that's kind of impressive, honestly. Let's see. So there's the Bills and Dolphins have been there more than 3 times in a row. Denver won it back-to-back in 98-99. Patriots have been there twice in a row, 04 and 05. But I don't think they've been there 3 years in a row. Yeah, so only the Bills and Dolphins have been teams that have made the Super Bowl 3 years in a row at least. And obviously it's not an easy thing to do, so I'm not sure really that this is going to be the year that the Patriots end up going back. They might just be a different team this time. All right, and if it is a different team, I mean, who's he going to be? Is he going to be Jacksonville? Will Pittsburgh get back? Tennessee possibly? Maybe the Chargers? Maybe it's finally their year? All right, who knows? But now that I look at it, I mean, it's got to be someone other than the Patriots this year making it to the Super Bowl. It's just recent history, or history as a whole has told us that it doesn't necessarily happen too much unless you're the Buffalo Bills or the Miami Dolphins. So we'll see what ends up happening. But we're going to wrap it up here. All right, we talked about the whole Patriots not being a fun place to play or whatnot. I guess that's the price you pay for winning. So, I mean, it's either you do it or you don't. So we're going to wrap it up here, like I said. Next up, we'll be talking about Aaron Rodgers, his little contract situation. Talk about the Packers also. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC. Welcome back to this GSMC football podcast. We spent that first segment talking about the Patriots and them being no fun. All right, that seems to be a hot topic among players when they leave. But nonetheless, we also talked about Super Bowls, talked about going 3 years in a row. Only the Dolphins and Bills have done that. All right, and the Green Bay Packers haven't been to a Super Bowl since 2000 and haven't been back at the Super Bowl since 2011. All right, won that one. And like I said, since then haven't been back. Came close. How they come close? They made the playoffs a whole bunch of times, but I mean, Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, would you say that they've underachieved so far? I mean, they have won one Super Bowl, but they haven't been back since. All right. And you feel that, I mean, Rodgers took him to, or not Rodgers, Favre took him to 2 Super Bowls. Okay. And I feel like Rodgers maybe, in order to be regarded as maybe one of the best of all time, he does need to get to one more and probably win one more. All right. I'm not a big fan of, like, adding Super Bowls to see how good a player is. But nonetheless, it is something that I guess matters as far as the whole resume. All right. And I'm trying to see how they've done the last few years. All right, let me see. So, yeah, they've been in the wild card, lost the divisional round, lost the conference championship to Seattle in 2014, so they have been close. Let's see. They won, since they won the Super Bowl, they've lost in the divisional round to the Giants the year after. After that, they lost in the divisional round to the 49ers. Lost in the wild card game to the 49ers. Like I said, lost in the conference championship to the Seahawks. Lost in the divisional round the year after that to the Cardinals. Lost in the conference championship in 2016, the year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl, and then last year they missed out on the playoffs because Rodgers was hurt for most of the season. All right. But nonetheless, the whole point about this segment is to talk about Aaron Rodgers and his whole contract situation with the Packers. All right. And right now, it's looking like they are going to eventually probably get a deal done. But Rodgers does want a couple of things in his deal. Obviously, to be the highest paid player in the NFL. And a couple of opt-out clauses. And I have no problem with a guy like Rodgers asking for an opt-out clause. Because if you think about it, the quarterback market is always changing. Okay? Constantly. I mean, you got guys like Kirk Cousins now who are getting about $87 million guaranteed money. All right? Matt Ryan getting $100. If you are Aaron Rodgers, you probably think, you know what, I deserve a little bit of that too. Okay. You don't want the money to ever pass you up, I guess, is what I'm trying to say for Rodgers. Okay. Rodgers is by far the best quarterback as far as talent goes in the league. All right. Tom Brady, talking about all time, is the better one. But nonetheless, I mean, Rodgers can do a whole lot more than Brady, I feel. All right. And I'm looking at the contract numbers right now. So Matt Ryan, he's getting $100 million guaranteed. Jimmy Garoppolo's got $74 million guaranteed. Stafford's got $92. Okay, Andrew Luck's got $87. Derek Carr's got $70. Rodgers, when he signed his deal, got $54 million guaranteed. Obviously, that's not great. Okay. Kirk Cousins got $84 million. Eli's got $67 million guaranteed on their current deals. Smith's got $71. Newman's got $60. So let me go, who's making more guaranteed money than Rodgers right now? I'm going to go Ryan 1, Garoppolo 2, Stafford 3, Carr 4, Luck 5, Newton 6, Smith 7, Wilson 8, Cousins 9, Manning 10, Phillip Rivers 11. So there's 11 players, 11 quarterbacks in the league making more guaranteed money than Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, that needs to change. Okay. You're making about $22 million a year on average. And that is still not even the highest or near it. All right. Let's see. He's making his total guarantee, his total money for his contract's at $110. Lux is bigger. Carr's is bigger. Stafford has more. Garoppolo has more, and then so does Ryan. So obviously, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you want to be up there with Ryan and Garoppolo, probably above them, which he probably will be. I don't see how the Packers don't end up giving him more than $100 million guaranteed, or how he accepts something like that. All right. And I'm sure they're going to get something done, but it's just a point of, I mean, with the whole opt-out clause, you don't ever want to fall behind like he is right here. Okay, and I think that might be one reason why we're seeing Julio Jones over in Atlanta skipping out on OTAs. At one point, Julio Jones was the highest paid receiver in the league, but the market has passed him up, and now I think he's trying to look for a bigger deal. All right? And if you're a top player at your position, of course, you're always going to want to be compensated like one. No matter you signed a deal the year before or whatever. Whoever's getting more than you, if you're the top receiver, then you probably think you deserve more. And I think that's rightfully so. All right? And it seems, too, that, I don't know, I feel like Rodgers probably won't end up finishing his career with the Packers. All right? I mean, I don't know. I might be overthinking it here. But it's just a point where, I mean, there's just been little things over the years. It seems like it's been kind of accumulating. Okay, because let's say that they do put these opt-out clauses in, and Rodgers does opt out and eventually wants more money, and let's say that Green Bay's in a position where they can't give him anything else. Rodgers seems like the kind of player who would just take off and go play for someone else. Okay. I don't think Rodgers feels any real loyalty to the Packers. And I think Rodgers is smart to the point where he knows that he's doing a job and he's treating it like a job. Okay. There's no real loyalty in this business, so why would he give it to the Packers? All right. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with him asking for opt-out clauses. That'd be a bold move if Green Bay gave him one. I mean, they have no choice really but to, if that's what he wants. Okay? Because, I mean, if you're Green Bay and you do put an opt-out clause in there, that's giving him the opportunity to leave your team. And if Rodgers were to leave, I mean, what do you have after that? I think DeShone Kizer maybe could eventually become a good quarterback, but that's just a theory for me. There's no real concrete evidence, I guess, that shows it. I mean, he looked pretty bad with the Browns, and I think he just needs a whole bunch of development, and that's probably like a few years development is what I'm getting at. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, Rodgers is probably going to get an extension this before the season starts, and it's just a matter of I'm looking forward to seeing how much money he makes guaranteed and to see if he gets those opt-out clauses in there. All right, and I mean, looking at the team this season, it's going to be tough for them to be real successful. Okay, you got the NFC North where the Minnesota Vikings, I think, are the best team in that division. Detroit has gotten better. Chicago has gotten better. The NFC South had 3 teams make the playoffs last season. The NFC West, you got Los Angeles, who is probably the best, most complete team on paper. Cardinals went 8-8 last year and improved this offseason, their team. San Francisco's got Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're looking to see what's going on with him this season. All right, and then you get the Seattle Seahawks, who lost a lot of players on defense, but nonetheless do have a top 5 coach and a top 5 quarterback. So that's obviously going to help them. And then you got the NFC East, where you got the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Dallas Cowboys, who should be better this year, the New York Giants, who should be better, and the Washington Redskins. All right, it's going to be tough to make the wild card for this Packers team, let alone like win their division and all that. Okay. And like I said, I mean, Brett Favre went to 2 Super Bowls. And I hate doing this whole comparing thing, but does Rodgers need to do more in order to be regarded as an all-time great? Okay? Favre isn't regarded as like a top 5 quarterback or anything like that, but we still, when we think of all-time greats, you can bring up Brett Favre. Can you bring up Aaron Rodgers? Does he have the resume for that yet? I mean, in reality, he's been injured a bunch of seasons. Okay? Then let me pull up his stat list right here. And Rodgers has an MVP, right? I mean, he has to have one at least. Let me see real quick. Yeah, he's a 2-time MVP, 2-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowl, 1-time Super Bowl champ. All right. And let's see. I mean, he's got the stats of an all-time great quarterback. But it's just a point where, like I said, he needs the resume. All right. Let me see. He's 10th all-time active in passing attempts. Passing yards, he's 20th all-time. Passing touchdowns, he's 10th all-time. Number 1 in passer rating. So, I mean, I think he just needs one more Super Bowl to put on that resume, and then we can regard him as a all-time great quarterback. All right. Let's see. Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening with the whole contract situation. Like I said, I mean, I'm sure they're going to give him a new deal. All right. But he's going to have to get more than what Ryan is getting. And like I said, he's probably going to have those opt-out clauses in there. And as far as this season for the Green Bay Packers, I mean, I'm sure that they probably will end up making the playoffs, but it's just a matter of getting through the NFC, and the playoffs is going to be entirely difficult, just given how good everyone is out there, all right? But anyway, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Miami Dolphins giving Bobby McCain a contract extension. Also talk about them coming up in this season. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked about the Patriots, we talked about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Now we're going to be talking about the Miami Dolphins and Bobby McCain. All right, and I don't think we've covered yet Brandon Marshall going to the Seahawks, so we'll talk about that in the fourth segment. All right, but nonetheless, all right, Bobby McCain finishing up his rookie deal. All right, was coming into his fourth year. Was working out an extension with the Miami Dolphins. And McCain isn't a big guy by any means or anything like that. Right, was only making about, he was only guaranteed about $228,000, average making about $630,000 a year from his rookie contract. Now is the highest paid nickel cornerback in the league. He's going to be getting a 4-year, $27 million deal at $13 million guaranteed, and I think that's a deserving deal for him, given that he has been a real solid player for this Dolphins team. All right. Like I said, isn't the biggest guy or anything like that, but nonetheless does a job and does it well. And he comes from their 2015 draft class where they got Devontae Parker. And I think they got Jordan Phillips, I think they took from that draft also. All right. But nonetheless, like last year, he had 48 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a sack. I think one of those interceptions came against, did he intercept Tom Brady in that Monday night game? I don't remember if he did. I know he had, I'm almost positive he did have one, but I'd have to double check that. But nonetheless, I mean, I think he is a very good player for that team. And Miami seemed to try and bring back their own, okay? I mean, the guys who played well for them. All right, they gave Rashad Jones a long-term deal. He's with the team till 2023. Obviously, they got Tannehill locked up under contract for a while. All right, Tanny Stills, they gave him an extension last year, I think it was. He's locked up 2021. Kiko Alonso, they re-signed him. They gave TJ McDonald a long-term deal. Andre Branch, they've been extending Cameron Wake since, forever. Okay. And all the other guys, are just guys they just brought in, or they're all still rookies or young players. Okay. So they've done well to lock up their own. But now it's just a point with Miami. I mean, you lost Jarvis Landry. You lost Ndamukong Suh. Okay, you traded J.J. mid-season last year. He went out and won a Super Bowl. Is this whole little culture change something that's going to work? All right. And I do like what they've done so far in the offseason. I thought they did exceptionally well in the draft. I figured that getting Minkah Fitzpatrick at the number 11 pick was the most you could get for value at that pick. Okay, I figured that they were probably going to end up with a guy like maybe Tremaine Edmonds or whatnot, but with Fitzpatrick falling all the way down to 11, that was a plus. All right. And now it's just a point of you're not going to win the division, but can you fight for a wild card spot? Okay, and I think if there was any year to do that, it'd be this year, because like I said, I don't really think too high of the AFC. The teams that Miami's going to have to compete with for that are teams like the Titans, all right, the Texans, the Broncos, and possibly the Browns. All right, I have the Jaguars winning their division, the Chargers winning their division, obviously the Patriots winning the AFC East, and then the Steelers winning the NFC North. The AFC is not going to be relatively strong by any means. I mean, there's only like really truly three teams I think that can go out and compete for a Super Bowl. That's Jacksonville, that's Pittsburgh, and that's New England in the AFC. All right. The Chargers, as much as I want to believe in them, they make it tough. Extremely tough. Given that they just can't seem to get it done when it matters most. And that's kind of been their MO since Phillip Rivers has taken over. And I don't necessarily think that it's Phillip Rivers' fault that the Chargers have not won a Super Bowl yet and seemingly just come up short in every big moment that they've ever come across. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, going back to Miami, it's a point where it's the culture change and also can Ryan Tannehill do the job? Okay. And that's the million-dollar question for this team. We've seen so far, Tannehill has looked like a fringe top 10 quarterback to he's a bottom-tier quarterback. Okay. There's no real consistency in his game. Some days he looks great, some days he just doesn't. All right. And it seems that Adam Gase has kind of put his job on the line this season by not drafting a quarterback this year. Okay. Adam Gase's first year with Miami, I believe they went 10-6, make the playoffs. Tannehill gets hurt towards the end of the season, though, so they don't do anything in the playoffs. The next year, Tannehill completely tears his ACL in training camp and pretty much have a throwaway season with Jay Cutler being the quarterback. All right, there was no winning with that guy. And now in his third season, it's more of a season where you're like, all right, you finally got to do something, okay? Last year, you didn't have your quarterback. This year, you do, and Miami just seems like they're tired of losing all the time. All right. So now it's a point of, is Tannehill good enough to help Gase keep his job? Because by not drafting a quarterback, that shows the front office that, you know what, this is our guy. I believe in him. You put him at your riding and dying with this guy. Okay. And they don't necessarily have a bad team. I mean, if you look at the defense, you've got Charles Harris, Cam Wake, William Hayes coming back, who did well before he got hurt. Okay, your safety spot is probably the strongest spot on your defense with Rashad Jones, TJ McDonald, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, the secondary as a whole, I think, is Miami's biggest strength on defense. All right, Xavier Howard looked good last season, kind of had a little breakout year. And Cordrea Tinkersley did okay for a rookie. Linebackers are the only one I'm kind of worried about. They're going to have technically one first-year player, but a second in Raekwon McMillan, who tore his ACL in the first game of preseason, the first preseason game last year on like a special teams play, right as the game started. So this is technically, in a way, going to be his first year also. You got Kiko Alonso, who is one of the slowest linebackers I've ever watched in the NFL. All right, so the defense is okay. I think it's got talent. The offense is kind of where you hold your breath because, I don't know. Offensive line's looking sharp. Wide receivers, you got Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, and Albert Wilson, also Danny Amendola. Devontae Parker has been a disappointment so far since he's come into the league. He hasn't really done much with Miami. All right, and I'm not sure if that's because Jarvis Landry was so much of a focal point that kind of took Devontae Parker out of the game because he didn't really get as many targets. But nonetheless, he does need to do a job this year. They drafted Mike Gesicki, the tight end out of Penn State. All right, he's going to be the day one starter for them, and also a guy who's going to be probably heavily involved in the offense. And as far as the running back position goes, you got Kenyon Drake, who, once J.J. got traded last year, did become the leading rusher in the NFL, I believe, in yards. You brought in Frank Gore, and they also drafted Kalen Ballage, who had a game with Arizona State where he scored 8 touchdowns. All right. So it's going to be real interesting to see what ends up happening with this Miami team. All right, they've only made the playoffs once in Tannehill's 5 seasons, and I feel like this is a year where I don't think it's going to be a problem if they don't make the playoffs, but they need to at least go 9-7, I think, in order for Adam Gase to keep his job. 8-8 is just stuck on mediocrity. Okay, even though that would be a 2-win improvement compared to last year. So it's going to be very interesting to see really what they end up doing this season as far as how well they end up playing. Looking at their schedule, I remember we looked at it about a week ago. I think it was like last Monday or last Tuesday, but nonetheless, or actually Thursday, 2 weeks ago, so about 2 weeks ago. The schedule to start isn't entirely difficult. Okay, and it seems like it's pretty evenly balanced as far as when they got to play good teams and when they got to play teams who probably won't be as good. All right. So we'll see what ends up happening with Miami. Like I said, they're not going to be winning in the division or anything like that, but I do think they will be better than Buffalo, New York. And like I said, the only teams they're really going to have to compete with for the wild card are teams like the Texans, the Titans, the Broncos, maybe the Chiefs. I'm not really sure what to think of Oakland. Okay. Oakland is a team who kind of like a wild card team that you're watching out for. All right. John Gruden seems that he wants to take that Raiders team back into the 90s, play some old school football. Well, that necessarily isn't something that always works out. All right. But I mean, Ryan Tannehill, he did have his best season under Gay, so that's maybe something that we could come to expect this season. Not him to have a great, like his best season ever or anything like that, but just to play well. All right, and looking at that 2015 draft class that Bobby McCain got taken, and they took Devontae Parker, who's a starter, Jordan Phillips, who's a starter. Like I said, Bobby McCain's a starter in the nickel. Jay Ajayi was a starter, then they traded him. Tony Lippett was a starter, but he blew out his knee last year, and eventually, I mean, could become the starter once again this year. It's a pretty solid draft. All right. And looking at their secondary, like I said, you got Jones, you got Fitzpatrick, McDonald, okay, Xavier Howard, Cordrea Tankersley, Bobby McCain, and Tony Lippett. TJ McDonald's still in his prime right now. Let's see, Rashad Jones, I believe, he is currently 30, so he's got about 5 more years left on his deal, so he'll probably retire as a Miami Dolphin. Okay. You got Xavier Howard, who's coming into his 3rd year. Tankersley, like I said, in his 2nd. McCain coming into his 4th. And then Lippett, who should be coming into his 4th. It's a real young secondary who should be doing well. All right. So we'll see what ends up happening with this team. They could be good. They could be terrible. So, I mean, you never really know with Miami Dolphins. So we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about Brandon Marshall. I don't think we've talked about him yet as far as being signed by the Seattle Seahawks. We'll talk about that. And we'll also probably mention Dez Bryant a bit in the segment. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked about the Miami Dolphins extending Bobby McCain. We talked about the Patriots being a no-fun team, and we talked about Aaron Rodgers and his little contract negotiations that are going on. All right, and I have a question that I'm thinking about right now. Is Brandon Marshall a Hall of Famer? All right. He's been a top 5 receiver before at one point. Okay, he's had years where he's caught over 118 passes. I mean, he's basically spent his entire career catching over 1,000 receiving yards. Always been near the 100 catch mark. I'm looking at his stats right now. The only downside to his career so far is that he's never made the playoffs. He does have a chance to do that with Seattle this season. All right, and I'm looking at him. He's right now 3rd active among active players in receptions, 16th all-time in receptions. Among active players, 3rd all-time in receiving yards, 23rd all-time in career receiving yards. And then as far as touchdowns, he's 3rd among active receivers and 23rd among all-time. All right. I don't think that those are Hall of Fame numbers right there. Let's see. He has made the All-Pro team once. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler. I'm going to go out and say that he's probably not. All right. He's kind of like a Matt Stafford. He's got the stats and the talent of a Hall of Famer, but just does not have the resume for it, meaning the All-Pros, the Super Bowls, the postseason appearances, all that. And like I said, Marshall's never made the postseason before, I don't believe. All right. He didn't make it 1 year with the Chicago Bears. If he didn't, that's brutal. Yeah, he never made the playoffs with the Bears. I guess he wasn't there at that time. All right. So, I mean, Brandon Marshall obviously was a free agent, and Seattle ended up picking him up. Signed him to a 1 year deal, maximum amount of $2 million. All right. And I think that this is a low-risk, high-reward type of move. Because, I mean, you're not bringing in Brandon Marshall to be your number one receiver. You have Doug Baldwin there. All right. And I guess now you're just waiting to see if Marshall brings anything to the table. Okay. And I'm not sure if he does. Brandon Marshall is about going to be 3 years removed from the great season he had back in 2015 with the Jets. All right. But it's a point where now he's coming off of a season-ending injury with the Giants. Didn't really do much with them before that. And it's just how much better could he be with these Seahawks? Okay, obviously you are going to a better quarterback right now in Russell Wilson, but again, like how do we it's just I don't know, I just don't trust a 34-year-old receiver who's coming off of a season-ending injury. That usually never really works out too well. All right. And I can't think of any receivers off the top of my head that have dealt with injuries at that age and came back and pretty much just picked up where they left off. All right. And even in his last year with the New York Jets, he wasn't even relatively good that year, 2016. All right. 2016, he has a down year. 2017, he gets hurt. 2018, you're going to tell me he's going to go back to his 2015 form? I'm not too sure about that. All right. But like I said, I do think he is going to help the team. They lost Paul Richardson. He is over in Washington now, I believe. All right, I think he's going to be good there. But I guess Marshall does give him another red zone threat now that they lost Jimmy Graham also. So I think that's one area where we could see Brandon Marshall do pretty well is in the red zone. All right, but like I said, I'm not expecting Marshall to go out and catch 100 and something passes for over 1,000 yards. Like, I don't see that really happening. All right, and I don't think that's a hot take or anything like that. It's just Marshall, this might just be the end of his career right here. All right, going to Seattle, trying to make the playoffs, and if it doesn't work out, like let's say Brandon Marshall doesn't play well with Seattle this year and he has a down year again, I don't think he'll be on a team next season. Okay, someone might take a flyer on him possibly, but I just don't see it happening. And like I said, I mean, Marshall's got all the stats and all that. He's got all the talent to be a Hall of Famer, but it's just he hasn't made the playoffs. Maybe, let's say that Marshall has a great year. Let's say he does something where he catches about 75 passes, has about 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, and let's say that Seattle makes the playoffs and they win a couple games and he plays well in the playoffs. Does that get him into the Hall of Fame? I don't think so. I don't know. It could. I think they'd have to go out and win a Super Bowl, and he'd have to play great in that Super Bowl game in order for him to get in. All right, and I think that's what it takes. And obviously, I don't see that happening. I don't think that the Seahawks really have a top 5 team in the NFC. They're not. Let's see. I would take the Rams, Eagles, Vikings, Saints over them. I think I would take the Falcons over them. It's already 5 teams. I would take Dallas over them. That's 6. I would take Green Bay over them. 7 teams. Carolina, that's 8 teams. So there's about 8 teams I'd take over them right now. Maybe even Detroit. So as far as Seattle winning the Super Bowl, I don't really think that they are capable of it. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, I don't think Wilson has ever played with a wide receiver like Brandon Marshall, meaning with the ability. Doug Baldwin's great and all, and I'd take him over Brandon Marshall right now, but as far as all-time overall talent, Brandon Marshall by far is better than Doug Baldwin. All right. So maybe Marshall could revive his career a bit, maybe play a couple more years with Seattle. But like I said, if it doesn't work out, then he's probably done after this season. And I think Marshall understands, too, why people kind of see him as broken down and all. Because, I mean, you are coming off of a season-ending injury at 34. All right, but it's always good to be a little bit more self-aware because that kind of just shows that he knows what he's got to do this season in order to become successful. All right, so there's that. And also there's another receiver who's still out there looking for a job, and that's Dez Bryant. All right, Dez Bryant's only 29 right now. At one point was a top 5 receiver in the league. Has seemingly got away from that and just really can't find work. All right, and I think that when the season gets here, he will be on a team. He will be starting for someone week 1. But it's just a point where he's probably going to have to wait till training camp in order to get that job. All right. Had a long-term deal available to him, offered by Baltimore, but he chose to turn that down because he wanted to take a 1-year deal and just bet on himself just so he could have, in hopes of getting a bigger deal after that. That's going to be a bit tough. Okay. Do I think he could do it? Yeah. But he's got to go to like the perfect team. And I'm not sure the right team is out there for him right now that needs him. All right. I thought that the San Francisco 49ers would be the best option for him, and I think that'd be a great option for San Francisco, just to give Jimmy G a true number 1 receiver. But I don't really see that happening, just given that teams really get turned off by sideline outbursts from players, especially when they got young quarterbacks, because you don't want, let's say you have a game where Dez Bryant only gets the ball thrown to him about 5 times. You don't want the possibility of him getting in Jimmy G's face and yelling at him on national TV. All right, we've seen that plenty of times when he was at Dallas, and obviously, like I said, you just don't want to see that with your younger quarterback. All right. I honestly think that Dez Bryant probably will end up in Buffalo. Okay. Given that they have the money to pay for him, and they just don't have really great receivers there right now. They got a couple of second-year receivers who didn't really look good last year. Okay. Kelvin Benjamin, I don't think is great by any means. I would take Dez Bryant over Kelvin Benjamin in a heartbeat. All right. And now it's just a matter of, with Buffalo, you're going to have to add some talent for Josh Allen or even A.J. McCarron. Okay? You can't just be throwing him out there kind of like how you did with Tyrod Taylor last year. Oh, here's LaShawn McCoy and some other guys. Go do well. Tyrod Taylor actually made it work because they made the playoffs. But nonetheless, that's not idealistically the best situation you want to be in. All right? And, as far as Dez Bryant goes, just like Brandon Marshall, Dez Bryant could be out of the league within 2 years. Okay, let's say he does sign a 1-year deal. Isn't really great or anything like that. Ends up leaving. Is there going to be another team that wants to bring him on? Maybe someone will take a flyer on him, but, realistically, if Dez Bryant getting cut by Dallas, not playing well the season after with his new team, why would you bring him on? All right, and that's crazy to say because he'll be 30 next year. He's still got time to be a good receiver, but like I said, he's got to go somewhere where they already got a good quarterback. Okay, he needs to go to a San Francisco-like team, a Tennessee team, maybe even Jacksonville would be a possibility. I think. Plus, you got these teams who added money to their salary cap with the post-June 1st cuts. So, who knows? All right. But Dez Bryant, was on his way to becoming a Hall of Fame type receiver. And a couple of bad years, and now he's out looking for a team. All right. It's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up. The NFC East, I thought maybe was a possibility. The NFC East said no, so now he's going to have to wait and see who wants him exactly. Aaron Rodgers didn't really give him a ringing endorsement when, he was asked about it as far as Dez Bryant playing for the Packers. That was a possibility. Rodgers basically said, you know what, we cut Jordy, why would we bring Dez Bryant in? And also too, I don't think that would be a good fit for Dez Bryant. You already got Devontae Adams there, who's the number 1, and then you got Jimmy Graham, who's coming off of a 10-touchdown season, so I just don't think that'd be a good fit. But anyways, that's all I got to say about that. We're going to wrap it up here. Today, we talked about the Patriots, we talked about Aaron Rodgers, talked about the Dolphins and Bobby McCain, and then in this segment, talked about Brandon Marshall and Dez Bryant. So, thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back on Monday, so stay tuned till then, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.